Right off the bat, we are introduced to our protagonist, Yogiri. He is on a school trip, everyone on the bus enjoying the ride, except for him, who is knocked out, sleeping like a rock. While he sleeps, he dives into an intense dream, a dark flashback of his childhood. We see a younger version of Yogiri walking through the corridors of a secret underground facility, a laboratory where he was raised like some kind of filthy lab rat, like a Japanese version of Stranger Things. Chaos reigns there, bullets flying everywhere, but the kid is calm, almost bored, walking as if he were Neo from the Matrix, dodging danger effortlessly. He starts shouting the name of the only person who seemed to care about him in that place, his adoptive mother, Misa. But things get ugly. A figure appears with a gun pointed directly at her. Misa panics and asks Yogiri to stay back, apologizing as if she knew what was about to happen. The criminal starts mocking the boy, calling him a useless orphan, with no one in the world. But before he could pull the trigger, Yogiri just looks into the guy's eyes, and that's when everything changes. With a single glance, without moving a muscle, Yogiri activates a secret ability, a power of instant death. The thug drops dead on the ground, not even knowing what hit him. Misa is shocked, but the scene suddenly shifts, cutting back to reality. Back on the school trip bus, a girl named Tomochika is yelling at Yogiri, trying to wake him up from the deepest sleep in the world. The reason? The school bus is literally being transported to another world, a real isekai, and Yogiri didn't even flinch. When he finally wakes up, he looks around confused and asks what happened. Tomochika screams in his face, asking how the hell he managed to sleep through one of the craziest events in human history. Yogiri starts realizing something is wrong. A giant dragon, yes, a real dragon, is attacking the school bus, and several students have already been brutally killed by the creature. Tomochika explains that this monster, some absurdly strong wyvern, has been wrecking everyone since they were reborn in this new world. Trying to do something, Yogiri grabs the first object he sees, a microphone, and throws it at the dragon. Obviously, it's useless, only making the beast even angrier. The dragon begins charging a fireball in its mouth, ready to turn the two of them into ashes. Tomochika, panicking, clings to him like it's the last living thing. And yes, she squashes herself all over him, but then comes the twist. Yogiri stares into the dragon's eyes, a cold, almost bored look, and boom! The monster simply collapses to the ground, dead, erased from existence. All of that with just Yogiri's gaze. The girl is in shock. After that, he turns to her and makes a teasing joke, saying she should repay him for saving her life. And while acting all relaxed, he pulls out a Game Boy and starts playing like nothing happened. Tomochika, furious, says that if he doesn't put the console away, she'll never let him touch her melons again. Yes, she actually says that. The blackmail works. He turns off the console and finally she begins to explain what happened. She says that while they were going through a tunnel, suddenly the scenery outside completely changed. When they came out the other side, they were in an open field, full of flowers, straight out of an RPG. That's when a stuck-up fairy named Sion appeared, who entered the bus saying they had all been summoned to her magical world. The school principal, of course, thought it was all crazy, but as soon as he touched the fairy's hand, he vanished. Poof, as if she had the power of Thanos' snap. She warns everyone that anyone who disobeys will disappear too, and starts showing off, saying she is an SSS rank mage, the most powerful on the island with a power level over 9,000. Yes, she drops that anime reference thinking it'll be funny. Nobody laughed. That pissed her off. The goddess then calls everyone muggles useless without magic and says it's forbidden to exist in that world without magical power. Their mission? Evolve, level up, and fight monsters until they prove worthy of becoming her successors. One by one, the students start glowing, activating holographic screens with their stats as if they were in a game. But Tomochika, Shinzu, the popular girl, Ku, some random guy, and Yogiri, nothing. No glow, no stats. They seem to be completely outside the rules. Right after, someone warns that the dragon is approaching again. It's level 100, 100 times stronger than anyone there. Desperate, the students try to negotiate with the goddess to be sent back to Japan. But then the class bully, a guy named Yusuke who thinks he's the pop star of the school, stands up saying they'll have to face the challenge. He was blessed with the class of general, with absurd strength even at level 1. So, along with the students who received classes and powers, he leads them out of the bus toward the forest, where they'll face the dragon. But before that, he orders the useless ones, the 4 who didn't glow, to stay inside the bus, since they're good for nothing in this world. He even blocks the door like he's some kind of anime hero. Then the dragon arrives, imposing, colossal. But guess what? Yogiri doesn't even need to get up from his seat. He uses his instant death ability once again, just with his gaze, and takes down the creature as if it were a bug. Tomochika, eyes wide, asks if he was the one who did that. He just denies it, saying he doesn't even have magic, he's just a normal guy. When Tomochika looks at Yogiri, she's still in shock. How could this useless nerd who sleeps all day defeat such a boss-level dragon? That's what goes through her mind. Then she remembers. Of course, he really is the laziest student in school, always sleeping. So maybe he is telling the truth. As soon as the two get off the bus, they notice something strange in the sky. There are people flying up there. It's their classmates who came back just to see if the magicless ones had been eaten by the dragon. But when they see the beast dead and Yogiri looking like he doesn't even know what happened, they are dumbfounded. Down below are only sleepy Yogiri and loud Tomochika, alive and well. When they land, the classmates already start showing off. Each of them has a magical role in this new world. One of them, a chubby guy named Damon, is a healer. Rihachida is a hero who controls fire, and Yosuke, the weirdest of the trio, is a necromancer. Damon gets pissed when he sees Tomochika alive. He wanted to troll her, turn the girl into a zombie, using a combination of healing magic with necromancy. But it wasn't just for fun. The fire hero, Rihachida, immediately drops the disgusting idea. He wanted to revive Tomochika just to make out with her, since when alive, she never paid attention to him. Yes, that gross. Tomochika, of course, tells him to go to hell and calls him the ugliest in the class. Rihachida gets pissed, summons a giant fireball and starts threatening, saying that if she doesn't let him smell her feet, yes, you read that right, he will finish the two of them right there. But that's when Yogiri steps in. Without raising his voice, he points at the guy and dryly says, "Drop dead." Everyone starts laughing, thinking it's just a joke. Until seconds later, Rihachida collapses on the ground, dead, no magic, no touch, no chance. Yogiri's instant death power claimed another victim. Damon and Yosuke freeze in disbelief. The necromancer starts crying over his friend's death and asks Damon to heal his body. But then comes the bomb. Healing or resurrection powers don't work on anyone who is the target of Yogiri's ability. He's basically the final boss of the entire anime. Nobody stands a chance. Yosuke, desperate, tries to argue, saying this is way too overpowered, that Yogiri should be banned from the anime for being so unbalanced. Yogiri calmly replies, "Actually, there is something in this world that can stop me, but it's definitely not you." Damon, realizing there's no way out, changes his tune immediately. He tries to get closer, offering a truce, saying he wants to be friends, but Yogiri sees through it instantly. He can sense when someone has the intent to kill, another one of his powers, detecting killing intent. The chubby guy turns pale, drops to his knees and starts begging the heavens for someone to erase Yogiri from existence. He says nobody stands a chance against this guy. Yogiri, curious, asks what this whole Demon King talk means. And then Damon reveals. He and his two friends had already been summoned once before to this world, sent to defeat the so-called Demon King. But they failed, were killed, and that's why they were reborn again now, like a second chance. Yogiri doesn't believe it. He says he's never seen these guys missing from school, but Damon explains. Time in this world flows differently. There they spent months, but when they returned to Japan, only a few hours had passed. That's why no one noticed anything. Even so, Yogiri is not in the mood for chatting. He prepares to end the chubby guy's game over, but Damon begs to live. He promises to be his guide, a loyal servant, and help him navigate this new world, find the Demon King, and, with luck, defeat him. Tomochika is surprised to see that Yogiri really seems willing to help her on this journey, but he ruins the mood by saying he's only protecting her because of the soft touch he felt when she threw herself at him on the bus in desperation. And yes, he's referring to her boobs. Tomochika turns red with anger. She thought Yogiri was just a kind guy, with no ulterior motives, but the boy is indeed a jug appreciator, a true man of culture. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we see Sajin tossing in bed, waiting for a report from his assistant Yuit. He arrives and says that 4 people died in the first Sage's test, including 2 without blessings and 2 who had Sage King rank abilities. Initially shocked, he decides it's not urgent enough to worry about right now and goes back to lying down, like that student who ignores the thesis until the last day. Yogiri and Tomochika decide to head for the nearest city, hoping to find their classmates. They manage to arrive just in time before the gates close, but there's a problem. They don't speak the local language. Luckily for them, an officer appears and, surprisingly, speaks their language. Yogiri explains that they got separated from the group and are trying to catch up. The officer, somewhat arrogant, says he has no orders to help sage candidates, but he has no orders to stop them either. In the end, he drops a disgusting proposal. He says Tomochika can stay at his house if she wants. She widens her eyes, grabs Yogiri by the hand and runs off saying, "No thanks." Yogiri asks why she left like that. She replies that she was afraid he would send the officer straight to hell right there because of his rudeness. He says she's exaggerating, that he's not a psychopath, but she retorts, "You really don't know that's exactly what you are?" After that, they start exploring the city, observing the architecture and the people of this new world, until they meet a super cute cat girl named Miyu. She offers to help the two of them, for free. Suspicious, they ask her why, and Miyu tells the truth. Her goal is to date one of the sage candidates, so she's making friends with as many of the boys in the trial as possible. She heard that these candidates have a thing for cat girls like her, so she's betting high on feline charm. The kitty, all cute and helpful, seemed to be helping out of charity, but of course it wasn't quite like that. Besides being cute, she counted on the race factor. Cat girls in this world are usually popular, desired, and generally linked to powerful people, so she was betting high on that. Yogiri and Tomochika decide to trust her, even if reluctantly, and she starts showing them around the city. During the tour, Tomochika takes the opportunity to spend good money on new clothes. But, as Yogiri already suspected, the day ends with betrayal. When night falls, they realize they've been surrounded. Miyu, the cute kitty, was actually part of a gang of bandits. Their plan, sell Yogiri and Tomochika as stress relief slaves. It's sinister. Yogiri, with the same calm face as always, just says, "Everyone behind me dies." The bandits drop to the ground without even understanding what happened. Then he starts testing his ability on those who remain, now aiming at specific parts of the body just to experiment. One by one falls, until only two remain, the traitor Miyu and the gang leader. This time, Yogiri decides to test a new mode. He gives the death command but lets the two of them run for a few seconds before the effect activates. When the ability finally explodes, the two simply vanish from the map. Game over. But when they try to leave, the city knights appear, led by Captain Edelgard. She immediately says she saw the bandits falling and asks, "What happened?" Yogiri bluntly asks why they didn't help if they were watching everything. Edelgard coldly replies that the plan was to let the two be captured so they could follow the bandits to their base and arrest the leader of the organization. But now that Yogiri solved everything with a fatal blink, the plan went down the drain. She also says they shouldn't think too highly of themselves, because people protected by the Saint's blessing are immune to their attacks. Then the vice captain interrupts and uses an analysis ability. He discovers that Yogiri and Tomochika have no Saint's blessing at all. Edelgard is confused because if that's true, then they really were the ones responsible for all that. Even so, she decides to let them go. The vice captain apologizes for the approach and even points out a luxury hotel where they can spend the night. Arriving there, Yogiri books 2 separate rooms without even thinking twice. But Tomochika, already alone in her room, starts wondering, does he like me? Before she can think too much, she feels a cold wind. When she looks up, she sees a chubby ghost floating on the ceiling. Her first reaction is panic, but then, looking closely, the apparition's face seems familiar. The floating woman introduces herself as Makoko, wife of the son of Dana School's founder and distant ancestor of Tomochika herself. Makoko explains that she is the family's guardian spirit, and that her mission is to restore the Dana dynasty. Tomochika asks why she didn't appear before, and Makoko admits she was afraid of Yogiri. One scare from him could be enough to turn her into dust in the air. So she asks Tomochika to tell Yogiri everything the next day, so she can appear safely. Makoko also reveals that it was she who prevented Tomochika from receiving the Saint's blessing, because once you accept it, you basically become a puppet controlled by her. The spirit's mission is to help Tomochika return to the real world. To do that, she will pass on the secrets and techniques of the Dana family so that she can fight on her own. The next morning, Tomochika meets Yogiri and asks if they are going after their classmates. That's when the hotel concierge shows up, an elegant woman named Celestina. She explains that this hotel serves only the ultra-rich and fulfills any request, as long as the money is right. Yogiri asks for help locating their class. Celestina gives them a map of the royal capital, 2 train tickets, and explains that, according to their information network, the students are crossing the forest, fighting monsters to level up. He also hands her all the jewels and gold they have, asking her to invest it all in something profitable. She also prepares some special items, like a charger for his portable video game and even a magic translation dictionary. On the train, the two finally relax. Tomochika tells Yogiri about Makoko, the ancestral ghost. The two settle down. She sits next to him and starts charging the device. The trip is peaceful, until suddenly, Yogiri pulls her down and they both drop to the floor, just as a slashing blow cuts through the roof of the car as if it were paper. Outside, a robotic alien called Aggressor is fighting a sage named Sanu. The battle between the two looks like something from another universe. Blows that topple mountains, explosions tearing the sky. Tomochika asks if Yogiri is going to eliminate them both for disturbing the trip, but he replies that he can't just go around killing anyone just for being inconvenient. He explains that he needs a standard, a clear line to decide when it's fair to use his power, otherwise he might end up killing innocents for stupid reasons. But the fight gets closer, and that sage, extremely arrogant, kills several train passengers right in front of them and even says, "You should kneel before my greatness." That pisses Yogiri off. He just rolls his eyes at the guy and game over. The sage drops dead. The aggressor, who had been full of confidence until then, starts trembling. The robot immediately surrenders, swearing loyalty to Yogiri, saying he'll do whatever he wants. Yogiri asks if he knows any way to return to the real world. The robot replies that he only knows how to return to his own planet and that he can't help with that. He explains that Yogiri didn't bring his real body here, only his consciousness. So, if he has enough mana and the right coordinates, the return is possible. Yogiri calmly replies, "All right, when I have what I need, you guide me." The robot smiles satisfied, overjoyed to be able to help. At that moment, Makoko, Tomochika's ancestral spirit, asks the robot for a special piece of equipment, a weapon that changes shape to help her protege in the battles to come. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, the knights take one of the surviving bandits, the one who lost his sight after Yogiri's attack, to an immortal vampire sage named Lane. She tries to heal his eye, rebuilding it from scratch with magic, but it doesn't work. Even with all that, the guy remains blind. So Lane decides to bite his neck and try to turn him into her subordinate, but that also fails. Before she can try anything else, a hero invades her tower, even though he's someone who should be fighting monsters and invaders. This crazy hero says he needs to put an end to the tyranny of the sages and activates his special technique with the weird name, One Plane and Two Towers. The explosion is absurd, but it doesn't scratch the vampire. Lane just sighs, saying that if dying were that easy, life would be a lot less boring. Bored, she simply kicks him out of the tower and goes on with her life. After that, she orders the knights to follow Yogiri discreetly and find out where he is. Then she heads to meet the sage Shin, where the two of them talk about the boy with the instant death ability. Shin says she prefers Lane not to interfere in the sage candidate's trials, but if she takes care of an entity called Dark Calamity, then she will give her permission. Lane accepts the deal and sends her army captain, Mayuk, along with the troop called Immortal Corps, to the city of Hanabusa, predicting that things will heat up there. Coincidentally, it's to that same city that Yogiri and Tomochika are heading after the train accident. Hanabusa is a super modern city, full of skyscrapers. It even looks like the original Japan. During the walk, Makoko notices something curious. The city isn't surrounded by physical walls, but rather by a magical barrier that keeps monsters out. They head straight for the luxurious hotel Celestina recommended. There, by chance, they meet a classmate, Yugji, now in fantasy clothes and surrounded by 5 women. Tomochika, surprised, asks what he's doing there, since the others should still be in the forest leveling up. Yugji replies that he's separated from the group because he has a more efficient way to level up. He introduces his personal female guard, a complete harem, chosen among the various girls he calls ex-girlfriends. Tomochika explains to Yogiri that Yugji was always popular with girls because of his looks, but this time there seems to be something more behind it. Yugji then turns to her and says, "Don't you want to be my mistress too?" Tomochika dries up instantly. Not even the Sahara was as arid as the atmosphere at that moment. She asks where all that confidence comes from. He proudly replies that he received one of the strongest classes in the world, Dominator, which turns weak enemies into servants. At first, everyone in the group moved away from him out of fear. Until Arudo, a guy with the consultant class, appeared and explained the hidden potential of Yuji's ability. Inspired by a plan taken directly from the anime The Rising of the Shield Hero, Arudo suggested that Yugji buy low-level servants and use them in combat. That way, he would level up while the others fought for him. A true XP pyramid scheme. Yugji, who always wanted a harem, loved the idea. That's how he got where he is. After hearing everything, Tomochika refuses outright, and the two walk away. Meanwhile, we see the vampire Lane fighting the so-called Dark Aggressor, a creature that looks like it came out of a nightmare. Yogiri, for his part, decides to take a nap and sleeps for 3 straight days. During this time, Tomochika stays in her room waiting. Makoko warns that someone is watching Tomochika with hostile intentions, and she decides to wake Yogiri up immediately. As soon as he leaves the room, he activates his hostility radar, and without thinking twice, eliminates Yuji's weakest bodyguard, Erika, instantly with his ability. Right after, he informs the hotel reception that a woman fainted in the hallway. Meanwhile, Lane's immortal core soldiers are causing chaos in the streets of Hanabusa, trampling over civilians and turning them into zombies for the vampire's army. Yugji, realizing that he lost Erika's signal, sends 2 other bodyguards to capture Tomochika. Meanwhile, he clears a 150-floor dungeon, turning defeated monsters into servants. Yogiri and Tomochika decide to leave the hotel before things get worse, but on the way they are ambushed by Reza, the ice mage and captain of Yuji's bodyguards. She freezes the 2 of them in a solid block of ice. Yogiri just looks at the ice and dissolves it with his power. Reza is shocked, tries to cast another spell, but Yogiri simply kills the magic and then kills her wand. Yes, he destroys the wand with the power to kill objects. Reza drops to her knees without reaction. Yogiri asks if she can use magic without the wand, and if she has another one hidden. She admits that she is a wand master, but can only cast magic with them. She says she still has a spare kept in the chest. She also reveals that Yugji gave clear orders: capture Tomochika. At that moment, a strange doll begins crawling on the wall, trying to attack the 2 of them. But Tomochika, now more confident with Makoko's teachings, uses martial arts and destroys the doll with her own hands. The dolls are puppets, controlled by another of Yuji's bodyguards, Chelsea. Yogiri eliminates most of them with his ability, one by one. But when they think it's over, Reza tries one last trick, launching a puppet disguised as a hairpin. After eliminating Reza, Yogiri and Tomochika go after Chelsea to put an end to the mess. Seeing her companions defeated, Chelsea surrenders and reveals everything she knows about Yugji and his plans. With no allies, Yugji decides to go all out. He summons a swarm of cockroaches controlled with his Dominator ability and sends them to attack the couple. But Yogiri, with his hostility detection Wi-Fi, locates Yuji's exact position and eliminates him in the dungeon without even getting up from his chair. Game over for the Playboy. Meanwhile, the 2 remaining bodyguards, Euphemia and Stephanie, try to decide what to do now that they are free from the magic contract. Stephanie chooses to stay by Yuji's side and cry in silence. Euphemia, on the other hand, climbs to the dungeon exit and is surprised by the amount of light. When she finally gets out, she realizes that the entire city has turned into a desert. As she turns around, she sees darkness consuming everything in its path, leaving only sand behind. In the sky, flying above the chaos, is Lion, who says that her attacks don't work against this formless darkness. She lands and casts a charm spell on Euphemia, turning her into her servant. Then she demands that she reveal everything she knows about Yogiri. Meanwhile, Yogiri and Tomochika leave the hotel and notice that something is wrong. Almost everyone has turned into zombies, and someone shouts over the city's sound system that the zombie party is about to begin. They decide to escape Hanabusa as soon as possible. On the other side, we see Mayuk, the captain of the Immortal Corps, talking to the city's mayor, Ryuta, who, unsurprisingly, is also one of Lion's servants. Mayuk demands that Ryuta hand over the city key and, in the name of the Sage Lion, activates the city's loudspeakers, showing Yogiri and Tomochika's faces on the screens. He announces that everyone must capture them or end up becoming zombies as well. Ryuta is outraged. He worked hard to build a prosperous city and is now being forced to watch everything crumble at Lion's hands. With the entire city after Tomochika, Yogiri decides to face the situation head-on and goes to the main square to meet Mayuk. There, he proposes a deal. Lower the city's magic barrier so they can catch a train to the royal capital. But Mayuk mocks. "Do you have any idea what you've gotten yourselves into?" and commands his zombie army to attack. Yogiri, with zero patience, annihilates them all with a single thought. But Mayuk is in shock. How? They were already dead. And then Yogiri replies in giga-philosophical mode, "I am the one who decides what is dead and what is not." The captain, furious, activates his final transformation, a kind of vampire werewolf. But before he even finishes his transformation pose, Yogiri ends his life in the middle of the monologue, saying he doesn't have time to watch the cringiest villain in the anime transform. After that, he turns to Ryuta and asks if he can fix the city's barrier. The mayor explains that they are in territory controlled by Lion, and he himself doesn't understand why she is interfering in the sage selection. Suddenly, they realize that the city's civilians are walking toward them, as if being controlled by some invisible force. Makoko suspects it's some kind of spiritual bond, and Ryuta tries to protect them with the city's barrier, but it doesn't work. Lion is interfering directly. The citizens, now zombies, attack Yogiri, but drop dead one by one as soon as they approach, his ability activating automatically. Yogiri notices that seeing these people die is affecting Ryuta, so he says, "Come closer, staying away will only hurt you," and adds, "Looks like someone is testing the limits of my power. I've seen something like this before." From above, Lion watches everything, accompanied by her new servant, Euphemia. Seeing the darkness approaching where Yogiri is, Lion creates a copy of herself, but without the memories about the boy. She sends this copy into the sky, multiplying it with the instruction to attack the city if something strange happens, like the darkness suddenly disappearing. According to her, since the clones don't have memories of Yogiri, they won't generate any hostility signals that his ability can detect. And even if he discovers where the clones are, he won't be able to find or affect her real body. Meanwhile, Yogiri and company see the darkness approaching, turning everything it touches into sand. Everyone panics, trying to figure out how to deal with it. But in the middle of the chaos, Yogiri says, "I'm going to make this die. The darkness too." But before he can act, red meteors appear in the sky, falling as if the end of the world had begun. Out of nowhere, destruction starts raining from the sky. Red meteors fall on the city, blowing up everything in their path. But Tomochika, with her sharp eyesight, notices something strange. They seem to come from a red-haired woman wearing a red dress. Ryuta confirms. It's Lion, the sage. But no one understands the reason for so much chaos, and at that moment, the mayor loses any respect he still had for her. Yogiri analyzes the situation. The attacks are too fast for him to aim, and worse, they don't carry any direct hostility that he can detect with his death radar. But he says, "If only she aimed directly at me, then I could put an end to this." Ryuta, using his mayor abilities with aerial vision, says that the open park will probably be the next target. Then, he uses his authority to teleport Yogiri and Tomochika there and disappears seconds before one of Lion's clones attacks. Tomochika manages to spot the clone in time, and with that, Yogiri locates it and erases it with his ability. She even holds back the impact of the attack using Makoko's powers and the shape-shifting equipment they received from the giant robot aggressor. Meanwhile, we see Lion talking to Shin, realizing that all her puppets were defeated by Yogiri. She thinks of a new strategy, creating puppets with different memories so that he can't annihilate them all at once. But suddenly, her real form is killed inside her own house. Lion falls defeated. However, before disappearing, she smiles in relief. That would be her rebirth, since she had prepared an experimental body without memory, which would now serve as her new chance at life. Right after, we see a pink-haired girl waking up inside a coffin in an unknown mansion. She finds a projection stone where Lion's last message is recorded. The recording says who she is, that she carries none of the old memories, and that now she can live a new life beyond Yogiri's abilities' reach. Back in the city, Yogiri and Tomochika return to Ryuta and calmly announce that the sage was defeated. Ryuta, without the slightest burden on his conscience, says he feels no remorse at all. Someone who attacked his civilians never deserved respect. As thanks, he gives the two of them a next-generation military car to continue their journey to the royal capital. On the way, Tomochika asks, "Why doesn't Yogiri drive?" He answers calmly, "I always crash the car playing racing games. Better not risk it." So Tomochika takes the wheel. Makoko intervenes, saying that as heir of the Dana school, she must have a natural talent for piloting anything, from vehicles to weaponry. Tomochika thinks that makes absolutely no sense, but goes along with it anyway. While all this happens, the story takes a brief look at the other sage candidates who are in the forest. The samurai warrior Rako finishes another day of monster hunting and returns to camp. There, she finds the American ninja class student Carol holding a cell phone. Rako, suspicious, asks what she's doing there with the phone. Carol says she found the device lost in the forest and was just returning it, but in the middle of the conversation, she reveals that she took a look at the apps to understand how the Japanese were tracking Yogiri. Turns out Haku and Carol are spies, one from the Japanese government, the other from the United States. Both entered Yogiri's class to monitor the boy. The Americans were using satellites to watch him in the real world, but that doesn't work in that universe. That's why Carol decided to check Japan's methods, since they're the ones who have physical custody of Yogiri. Rako then opens the app. But to her horror, a red alert pops up. The first gate of Alpha Omega is opening. Elsewhere, Tomochika is driving like a maniac on an absurd mountain road. She takes physics-defying turns, screaming the whole time. But Yogiri is sound asleep, as if nothing is happening. That's when we enter Yogiri's dream, a flashback of his childhood. He remembers the moment when he met a woman who would become important to him. Saka Takatsu, an office worker who was the first to give him a name, Yogiri, and to teach him simple things like shaking another person's hand. At that time, we see Saka signing a strange contract during an interview for a secret job. The document clearly stated that she could not complain even if she died during the service. At first, she hesitates, but the interviewer, Yuko, convinces her by mentioning retirement and benefits. After signing, Saka asks, "This is like a secret evil organization, right?" And the man replies that they are merely a respectable association conducting special human experiments for the good of society. He then reveals her mission: take care of a monster. Saka asks what this monster is like. Yuko admits he has never seen it, but knows it can kill anyone just by thinking. The code name, Alpha Omega. The idea was that if they gave him modern education and taught him humanity, maybe they could prevent him from destroying the world. Since she had a teaching license, she would be perfect for the job. He takes her to an underground facility, hands her a manual, and warns her not to go beyond that line. Then he runs away quickly. Saka enters the place alone. The environment looks like a fake world, with an artificial sky and simulated landscape. She finds the house where the monster lives, enters, and only sees a little boy sitting in the living room. Furious, she says it's ridiculous to imprison a child like that. She takes the boy outside and tells him to play with tadpoles or something like that. But then the boy notices an evil shadow behind her, a demon, and annihilates it with his powers in a snap. He calmly explains that these things sometimes appear to attack him, but they're nothing major. Since it was already getting dark, Yogiri asks if it's okay to leave the playing for the next day. His answer calms Saka, who smiles, shakes his hand, and officially introduces herself. She asks his name, and the boy replies that there they call him Alpha Omega, but before that they called him Lord Akashi. The two hear his stomach growl and decide to go inside to eat something. Saka realizes she'll have to cook. The problem is she has as much cooking talent as a badly made sandwich. In the end, she makes instant noodles while the boy takes a bath. During the meal, she asks how his mother used to call him, but the boy doesn't know. So Saka decides to give him a name, Yogiri Takatsu, and that name makes the boy shine with happiness. She also teaches him the basics of human interaction, like introducing yourself by shaking hands and saying, "Nice to meet you." Cut to reality. Tomochika wakes Yogiri, shaking him, and says they've reached a dead end. They decide to turn back but end up bumping into a small dragon on the way. They both get out of the car, and Yogiri solves the problem in a second. But suddenly, a fleet of dragons appears flying toward them. Yogiri eliminates them all, one by one, without even leaving his spot. Until a golden lightning dragon appears, says they passed the test, and starts to leave. Yogiri tells it to stop. Past what exactly? Explain. Or I'll treat you like a pest too. The dragon, intimidated, returns and transforms into a little girl saying her name is Attila. She explains that she was testing the two to see if they were worthy of meeting the swordmaster. Confused, they say they were just heading to the royal capital and got lost. Attila is surprised but invites them anyway to accompany her to the swordmaster's trial site. They follow her into a magical forest where several candidates are gathered. There, an old man named Ura announces, "If in 10 minutes half of you are still alive, everyone fails." And that's how an insane battle royale begins. The first unlucky one is torn apart in seconds, followed by several others. A group of mages tries something, but Yogiri sends them all to the grave with his deadly ability. In the middle of the chaos, a righteous knight named Rick helps protect the group and even saves an unlucky guy named Lonnie, who was cut in half. They manage to save him thanks to a magic stone called the Stone of Forgiveness, which gives random powers and temporary buffs. Lonnie explains that he receives a new stone every night, a gift from a goddess who feels guilty for his bad luck. These stones work like a gacha system, summoning random items or effects. The next stage of the test takes them to a region where the deadly miasma grows denser and denser. Lonnie even vomits along the way, but Makoko notices that the poison in the air suddenly disappeared just when Yogiri started acting strangely. Soon they arrive at a gigantic tower where Ira shows a huge magic seal. The Dark King is imprisoned there along with the former swordmaster, who drove her blade into both to seal them. Time in the seal flows slowly, almost frozen. Ira explains that the mission of the future swordmaster will be to defeat the Dark King when he is released. An impulsive mage named Frederica reveals herself and launches a giant fireball at the seal, saying she will finish off the Dark King. But the spell freezes in time, completely useless. She realizes how stupid that was. Rick comments to Yogiri that Frederica is his friend and was the one who suggested he take this test. The examiners then explain the new phase. Everyone must descend to the last floor of the tower, facing monsters and challenges, and earn 100 points in 24 hours to pass the test. Tomochika, looking at the sealed Dark King, asks, "Yogiri, could you kill him too?" Yogiri's answer shocks her. With no time for drama, the two decide to descend the tower as quickly as possible. They join Rick and Lonnie. Luckily, since many have already gone ahead, the path is cleaner, with fewer monsters and traps. Even so, Lonnie falls into an arrow trap. But of course, the stones of forgiveness save him once again. On the way, they encounter an assassin knight named Teresa, who was a subordinate of the sage Yura. She went insane after killing many during the test and is now on a killing spree. Rick tries to face her, promising an epic battle, but Yogiri ends the fight before it even starts, using his power. No time for these shows, let's move. They reach the 98th floor, which serves as a safe zone with rooms to rest. Each one goes their way. Rick advances alone, Lonnie decides to sleep until midnight to get new gacha stones, and Yogiri and Tomochika decide to sleep together in the same room. At midnight, Lonnie triggers absurd luck and summons the very goddess who gave him the stones of forgiveness. She appears just to check how he's doing and disappears right after. Meanwhile, Yogiri and Tomochika sleep cuddled in the same bed. The next morning, the two wake up and see Makoko stuck in the wall, half of her body trapped in the structure. Something strange begins to happen. All the souls in the tower are being sucked toward the top. Makoko, half trapped in the wall, suffers from this, until Yogiri simply eliminates the mechanism responsible with his power. He then turns to Tomochika and warns in a serious tone, "From here on out, I'll start killing anyone without hesitation. No one can be trusted in this place." Tomochika replies firmly, "It's all right. I've already prepared myself for this and I'm not a hypocrite to judge you for protecting me." Those words warm Yogiri's heart. He blushes, shy, and says, "I'm hungry." Meanwhile, elsewhere, a sage named Ai is in combat with Rudo, another sage who abandoned his duties upon arriving in this world and founded a peaceful community in the forest with the Bekwim. But Ai is not there to talk. Her job is to eliminate sages and candidates who betrayed their mission. She possesses the power of the just world, which allows her to manipulate to the fullest the gifts given by God, both hers and others. She ends up killing Rudo without hesitation. Her magic dagger then speaks to her, yes, she has a dagger that talks, and informs her that the next targets are Yogiri and Tomochika. On the way to them, she is guided by Damon, the chubby guy who had been missing since the first episode. He seems to have lost his servant collar and reveals that he was taken in by Rudo. But now that Rudo is dead, he wants to follow Ai as his new master, or rather as her slave. Ai accepts his presence, and together they head toward their destination. Along the way, they come across the golden lightning dragon from before. Damon gets worried. Ai can only deal with overpowered abilities from other worlds, and the dragon is a natural creature. But Ai says she can interfere with natural phenomena as long as the enemy doesn't have a very high level of lux, luck, or divine light. She tries to stop the dragon's flight, saying it's too big to fly, and it actually works. But before she finishes the job, an aggressor named Hayhog suddenly appears and pierces the dragon with his leg, killing it. Afterwards, he disappears as if nothing had happened, but before that, he points out the way to the swordmaster's tower.